Okay, cool. So wait, so you were in Chicago. So whereabouts did you guys go? Like the Navy Pier and all that good stuff?
So we went day one. We got there pretty late because we drove from Detroit to Chicago. So we got there at like 7 p.m. We went to dinner near a hotel. We went to see a movie, and that was the third. On the fourth, we went to the Mag Mile, did a little shopping, had some Chicago style pizza, had a good breakfast as well. And we didn't make it out to Navy Pier. It was quite congested, but we did see some fireworks up and down the roads. So that was a good time. And then to wrap it up on the 5th, on Sunday, we went to Chinatown. We took like the water taxi down the river, went to Chinatown, checked out little shops, had some food. It was good.
Nice. That's cool, man. That's cool. Well, I hope you enjoyed. And, we already started recording, so I'm just going to kick us off. So this, again, David Feldman-Makrias here, but we got Jacob Robertson. I wanted to say Robert, but I said Robertson's instead. I did the right thing. And we are going to talk about his perspective because his perspective is pretty valuable. Why? Because he's worked in the agency space, but more importantly, he works at Google during this exact day. So, Jacob, could you just give us a little intro about yourself and just, I like to keep it informal, man. I like to keep it informal. Just kick us off.
Absolutely. So yeah, Jacob Robertson, got about 7 years of experience in paid media. Past year being directly at Google. I've worked in a handful of different agencies. I've started up my own little side agency among that as well. Done Google Ads, Meta, LinkedIn, TikTok, so on and so forth. I've built WordPress websites, done some SEO, some conversion rate optimization. So got a little bit of experience on the digital side. And then, like I said, past year being at Google. So I've been able to have the insider information on what's going on in the platform, what's considered Google's best practices. And yeah, I've been working with David since the start of the year.
Wait a minute. I didn't know you had your own little boutique thing going on. Is it still going on to this day, or is that something that you had to retire a little bit?
Had to retire joining the big G. But yeah, had a few clients on the side with Google, Meta, and so on.
It doesn't surprise me because having Google, being with Google for the last 15 years or so, heavily involved, I've had my fair share of Google reps, and 98% of them are not to the standard. But Jacob is one of the few that I've come across that actually can talk turkey and actually can see it from an agency side, a practical side, and know how the real mechanisms work in real life. So that does not surprise me at all, sir, that you had some of your own clients and some of your own accounts, because that was the vibe that I got anyways.
Awesome. I'm glad to be part of the 2%. And I will say, joining Google, coming from the agency side, that's the exact kind of line that I say. 98% of my Google reps have been pretty bad, truthfully. So my goal and my role is to be the 2% that's a little bit better. So I'm glad that your experience with me is that way.
It is. It very much is. Elena, too. Here's the thing, though, Jacob, and I have to ask it. And I think I already know the answer, but why are the Google reps so bad, man? Is it just because there's too many accounts and not everybody can be touched and we just got to be as efficient as possible? How come?
Hard to give you a good answer. Maybe we can chat offline on some more informal opinions. But I will say that, Google's changing every day. Every day there's a new product. Every day there's a new beta opportunity. Some things work well, some things don't work out. Sometimes the Google teams that you work with might not have the best context on your business. Maybe they haven't met your end client, or maybe the information they have. I mean, truthfully, you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So all to say in a very coy way, it could be business context, it could be levels of fluency, so on and so forth.
That makes sense. I don't mean to put you on the spot too bad, but you just set me up too good, man. I was hoping that, the stuff that we've worked on so far is a lot about the new types of campaign types in Google and how everything's shifting. For example, demand gen maps campaign, right? So we isolated a demand gen campaign, which I see now is gobbling up display. That's going to be going away as well. So demand gen is really going to be display, video, maps, and maybe kind of all the other broad awareness level real estate that Google has to offer, which I think is cool because I've seen some really good stuff off demand gen video, especially for conversions. But I wanted to get your take on like those. That's one of the few nuances we're working on, right? But like, what do you think, at least now, today's July 7th, 2026, what's the biggest thing Google Ads wise that you see on the horizon? What's that like? If you had to boil it down to one thing, what do you see that's like, oh, everybody's got to focus on this, and if they don't, they're going to get left behind?
A good question. I think it varies based off industry. If you're asking me generally Google Ads, I would say the structure of your search campaigns will need to change given AI Max, because AI Max does a lot of the heavy lifting with non-brand and brand search. So structuring your campaigns in a way to support that, because it's coming out, DSAs are going away, it's replacing DSAs.
Mm.
So structuring your search campaigns in a way that helps AI Max peruse the campaign structure, peruse your site. Think about it like a sitemap, having like a well-structured website so that way Google can crawl it effectively. Similar kind of ideology on that. Now, if you're asking on a like a more dealership focused type of thing, given the nuance that you've shared with some of the customers that you work with in like the vehicle space, and how certain businesses need separate campaigns for separate makes and models or separate makes, whatever it be. Maybe AI Max in its current state isn't how you should structure it. Maybe following like whatever business nuance there is. Um, or for the auto space, I think that video is huge, specifically through demand gen. When we talk about like dealerships, because it's for dealerships, it's about owning your local area, and how to do that is getting in front of the audience. And that's outside of like the normal BLAs and that kind of thing. In terms of what's upcoming and what's going to be strong for auto dealerships is demand gen, and to your point, maps as well.
Mm. See, yeah, the demand gen, it makes sense for Google to push demand gen because I look at it like most business owners, even though they might be the ones that I deal with, more limited in capacity and understanding of how search works, even to this day, they understand the point of being on Google because everybody's going there, right? But they don't always understand the benefit of utilizing Google's extra inventory, let's call it. And that has a lot to do with demand gen and the point of demand gen and video, right? I see amazing results, literally amazing, where I'm getting for like $300, $400, $500 a month, I'm getting 5 to 10 form submits off a video campaign for dealerships. And that cost per lead form submit is actually arguably under your normal digital marketing benchmark of paid search for cost per lead. So I totally understand the value. So what I took from what you said is AI Max for search, because that's going to replace pretty much everything search. And then demand gen. Yeah, that makes sense. See, the AI Max though, Jacob, like I've tested it everywhere, man. I just don't know if the guardrails are good enough, or maybe we're not using enough of the guardrails. Can you elaborate a little bit on AI Max guardrails and what you're seeing?
Yeah, so there is something that's coming out. It was announced at Google Marketing Live this year, something called AI Brief. This is something that's rolling out. Today's, July 7th, 2026. So it's not fully out for everyone yet. It's in beta, but it's getting there. And for the accounts that we work on, I got you guys on the list day one, so don't you worry.
Yes.
The guardrails that we have, so AI Max has three pillars. So It's the keyword targeting, find URL expansion, and then the asset customization, automatically print assets. So for 2 out of 3 pillars in the current state, we have guardrails that we can add. For the URL piece, we can add URL exclusions. So if we don't want AI Max to be able to serve on whatever, like an About Us page, or like specific URLs for a specific make, like if you're segmenting it that way, you could exclude URLs. On the asset customization piece, you can add different guidelines. So you can add like think about like negative keywords. You can add that for your ad copy. Then also you can add, there's 40 lines of prompting you can add. So think about how you might talk to Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever it be. You can prompt AI Max to say, hey, this campaign is supposed to be for Ford F-150s. Make sure the ad copy aligns with Ford F-150s. And it's fully customizable. So that's for the text customization and find URL expansion. The last one, the search term matching, that is not a fully available feature yet. That's something called AI Brief. And what they're working on is it's guidance for the audience piece. You can say like who exactly you're trying to target and what kind of keywords you're trying to target. So that's the last piece that's not fully available yet, but will be. They said that they're rolling out over the next few months.
Wow. Okay. So there's AI Brief, and then I'm going to call it AI Max instead of exclusions, because I know that they're inclusions. Or is there a different word for it that you mentioned?
Regarding the text customization?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's the text guidelines.
Text guidelines.
Yep.
Yeah. So I see. I know. Go ahead.
There's one other piece that I missed, and this is important for search. There's also brand inclusions and brand exclusions. So if you have a brand campaign, brand inclusions for David's Auto Group, and then brand exclusions for non-brand campaigns. And then of course, for like dealerships, you'd have to tinker it a bit. Like for example, for Ford, maybe you have a non-brand to your dealership campaign focused on Ford, you would add a Ford brand inclusion list to it.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of good stuff to unpack. And I was talking to my operations manager. Guy's been with me a long time, and we've just seen the evolution for the last 6 years or so of Google Ads, especially with Performance Max. It was the biggest thing that came on, and originally it wasn't that good for us. It really wasn't, but over time it's gotten better. But it made us more focus on, instead of, like you said, campaign structure, it's more about making sure all your products and stuff are there, and then having the right assets around it, which leads me to think about AI Max. Is the right approach, or I guess I'm going to ask your opinion on this approach, especially because you gave a great background saying you did WordPress websites, a little bit of SEO, kind of everything in your expertise. You know, my thought, instead of like, let's take a dealership. You run ads to an SRP page or a search results page that has multiple vehicles on it.
Yep.
And that's where a lot of the traffic goes, right? Wouldn't it make more sense then to kind of go back to the old school, create a model landing page that talks everything about the model the way you would want it to be talked about, which includes monthly incentives and offers and trims and this and that, and then maybe has an inventory section somewhere. But then hook that model landing page to your AI Max, which eventually is going to replace DSA, because then your dynamic search ad copy and keywords and everything should correlate right to the landing page, and all the time really could be spent working on the destination rather than the campaign architecture itself. What are your thoughts on that type of approach?
So is it kind of like a single keyword ad group type of setup where you've got Ford F-150 campaign or ad group, and the landing page is just for the make and model?
Essentially, yes, because how the dealership realm usually thinks about items is really by model.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's found DDM success and myself success is we tailored Google Ads to a model specific strategy more than I think a lot of the other vendors that we go up against. And first, so like we were one of the first ones to do model specific VLAs that I know of. because we worked with a lot of vendors. At least it wasn't publicized that others were doing that. And it took more work, but we slice and diced our feed. We slice and dice with custom labels and all sorts of stuff to make sure we can allocate a specific budget and own a specific targeting location for a model. And that way we could also see what's the share of that model, right? Like how much are we out there for, so on and so forth. So when you bring up SCAGs or single keyword ad group, I don't know if it's a single keyword, but it's more like a single focus. Because a RAM buyer, let's say Ram 1500. No, you mentioned Ford F-150. A Ford F-150, they could be looking for best truck near me, or Ford truck, or F-150. They could be looking at all those things. So the thought was to have the model landing page have all that packed into it so Google can pull from it correctly.
That's a good approach. It just sounds like a lot of heavy lifting. I mean, if you're able to build that out and have the infrastructure for it, I'd say go for it. Of course, using AI Max is another feature about AI Max and like why to use it. I'll kind of give you like a quick bullet list on it. So showing up in like the AI overviews, which not a whole lot on the video, or not the video, on the vehicle side of things. But let's say someone's out and about and they see this truck, they're not familiar. Maybe they're not, a car person, and they just see, oh, this truck looks pretty cool. I'm curious what it is. So they pull out their phone, they have Google open, they click the lens option. They take a picture with Google of the truck, and from there we're able to show ads based off of just a photo of like a Ford F-150 in this example, and we'd be able to pop up. And that's one feature of AI Max that we don't have through other channels.
Yep, that's a big deal. Being able to show up in AI overview and all those different placements, that would be huge. Can you describe the difference, Jacob, of when should companies and businesses know to use Performance Max versus AI Max? And I'll give you maybe a small case study example. We have some non-automotive clients that we're pitching right now, and they want to get started with Google Ads. They have a more limited budget, and they really want to get started. So sometimes it's difficult to know if we should point them in. My always go-to is point them in classic search first, because it's highest intent. But you just have to be able to spend at least some minimum to be relevant there. So, and then with AI Max, you should have a good website too to lead them to, and not all these small businesses have that. So if you could articulate, using that example, when to use PMax or Performance Max, when to use AI Max, I think that would help the audience watching.
Yeah, that's a good question. To answer your question with the question, can you tell me like what the digital maturity of like this said brand is? Like, do they have Google Ads already, or are they completely new to Google?
Completely new, very, very light, minimal SEO, very outdated website that maybe has some ranking for some search terms, but really very little presence. And that's something I see a lot with small business owners that maybe have been established for a while and aren't as techy and trying to get into the space. So that would be the context.
Yeah, so I would definitely say, given that context, start with search. If you have like a decent brand awareness, or maybe you have a couple locations in your area, building out a brand search campaign, so that way you're bringing in searches for your brand. Because like competitors will bid on your brand name just by nature of the game. So that way you've got coverage on that side. And then to your point about like the non-brand search targeting, having the build out for the model specific. Like if you want to win Ford F-150, you have to bid for it. So building out the non-brand campaigns for it, I feel like that makes sense. And then instead of like a PMax or AI Max, we see stronger performance better together. So leveraging both PMax and search together would be like the ultimate goal. But if you were to start slow, search then PMax, because search is our bread and butter.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think one of the biggest things that leads me from that topic is, so this is specifically for auto dealers. Well, even before I get to that, so I take from your last statement is if you're starting, start with search, which is leverage going to be into AI Max mostly. And then as you mature, I like digital maturity. I'm going to coin that. That's very nice, Jacob. As there's more digital maturity, then you can lean into more, and budget, of course. You can lean into more performance max. That's cool. Now, going into car dealers, you mentioned like search first, right? I mean, that's been the majority struggle for almost all of my auto dealers, where especially VLAs, because VLAs was like the buzzword that got us notoriety. And they're really not even called VLAs anymore; they're VAs. So, but I still call them VLAs. The idea to make standard shopping campaigns for VLAs instead of just Performance Max, because the controllability and the ad visibility. Do you have any insight into how that developed or what you think that means for auto?
Is the question more of how it came to be a concept, or like availability? Could you reframe the question, please?
Yeah. How, if you know how it became a concept, why did it happen?
Yeah, I mean, think about like a normal, like a standard e-commerce store. Being able to show on the shopping tiles for the different products that you serve becomes the question of like, okay, how do dealerships sell their products online? And that's where the shopping tiles come into play through the vehicle list or vehicle ads. And so that's traditionally done through PMAX. Like a lot of people do like the feedless PMAX or like the VLA only PMAX. Of course, there's like the full build ones too, where you add in the different assets and headlines, descriptions, etc. And then when it comes to shopping, it's kind of like plucking out a YouTube campaign from like a PMAX one. Like let's say PMAX is doing really well on YouTube and you want to capitalize on that, so you build a separate YouTube campaign and focus on it. Kind of same idea with VLAs through shopping. So that's where that comes into play, and I feel like it's kind of just a natural path where you should go in terms of having full control on spend for shopping.
Right.
In your experience, how have you seen VLA performance on shopping versus PMAX?
Very interesting question. I was going to elaborate on that. So, funny enough, recently I've had this happen 3 or 4 times now where I tell dealers, hey, the ability to only show up on shopping is here now. And we've launched that because I get calls from general managers and owners saying, I can't see my ads. I can't see my ads. Can't see my ads. And I go, I get it. You know, we've had to rebuild PMAX campaigns and try and change conversion settings and try and change conversions, primary to secondary, secondary to primary, all this different stuff to try and get their ads to show up in search or shopping, I should say. And it's really, if you look at the channel performance, it's really, what do they call it? Search ads with product data, right? That's what we want for shopping. But what I found over the last few months, so I took some of those guys and I converted all their campaigns to shopping, right? And we stopped with PMAX VLAs. We owned it. We had so much share. We showed up all the time. It was great. Not only did their conversions go down, but their actual website leads went down too. So we had multiple instances where, and it was so funny, a few months ago, one guy couldn't find any of his ads. This is before standard shopping for VLAs. One guy couldn't find any of his ads at all times. And then he would magically get 17, 18, 19 leads a day. And our Google ads was the primary spend. Well, then we switched to shopping only, and his leads shrunk by more than half. So I think the idea of where leads come from in automotive and where Google at least is saying conversion activity is coming from, I think there's a lot of power in Google's other networks. There really is, more than I ever thought. Like I was on the bandwagon search and shopping. That's it. You don't, and basic retargeting that's like 10% of spend. I don't know. I don't agree with that based on the results I'm seeing in the last couple months. Does that align with things that you see?
Absolutely. Yeah. I will say that I'm coming up on time here.
Sure.
One thing that I will say about Performance Max is that the idea of Performance Max is to show up where your consumers are. Google likes to coin the 4 S's. That's where people are searching, shopping, streaming, and scrolling. And Performance Max covers all of those bases. So given that PMax is a conversion-based campaign, typically optimizing for obviously a purchase, it's going to find users where they're interacting since it's an audience-based type of campaign. So to answer your question, yeah, PMax is great.
Awesome. Yeah, and the multiple channels are great. I know you're coming up on time, Jacob. I want to thank you for your time and making the time for us here. Is there any final words you'd like to leave us with?
Any final words?
Any last words?
Yeah, I will say test as much as you can. Lean into some of the new tools, ask questions, network, because there's so much that you can do on Google. Of course, off Google too, but Google is a pretty cool platform. So definitely recommend testing.
Yep, always be testing. That's our motto. That's how we learn and grow. So
Absolutely.
thank you, sir. I really appreciate your time. Feel free to get going to another meeting, and I'll let you know when this sucker's live.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks,
All right,
David. Thanks for having me.
bye-bye.
See ya.